What's up, everyone? Should probably use the glasses that don't have a ton of glare. There we go. All right. It's so weird when you first start streaming. You hit the button, it comes up, and it's like, oh shit, I gotta start talking. I gotta have stuff to say. And then like 2 weeks in, you're like, fuck it. Just start this up and like wave and grab some different glasses and shit. Kind of becomes no big deal. And then you ramble on about stupid shit like that. Anyway, welcome. Yeah, this has been an interesting week for this stream, this channel. On Tuesday, we kind of did a deep dive into forgiveness and why that's super important. I'm trying to get the audio right here for myself. So maybe do this. There we go. I love this headset. Arctis 7. There's all these little controls to make it so that the audio is right where you want to get it. We talked about forgiveness 2 days ago, why that's super important, what that looks like, went into my own story. We then yesterday kind of just hit on a number of random topics. Maybe not totally random, still kind of applicable to the channel, but we were talking about loneliness, fear of abandonment, what you can do about that, a little bit more about what coaching is, and then kind of talked a lot about environment and optimizing your environment for success. So if you missed either of those, you can watch the VODs down below or on the YouTube channel or whatever. And I've been trying to think of different things to mix it up. And thank you to some of you who have been giving me some really good ideas lately. Stuff to, just kind of try different things out, which we're going to try out tonight. I have Reddit pulled up and a few subreddits that we can look at and kind of look at some posts and kind of see some of the things people are struggling with, and if I were responding, what I'd say, what I'd suggest, what I'd do, so that we have some legitimate real life examples. I've also been working with some people, and they have given me their approval and okay to anonymously discuss a few things that they're going through, what the work has looked like between us and for them, and what some of the results have been, where they started, where they have gotten to so far. It's still a process, so things aren't done, but I might work some of that in as we go, and say, okay, well, if I was working with this person on Reddit, I could say from this experience working with a person I'm working with right now, here's how I'd be tackling it. And hopefully that gives you some insight into a little bit more about what I do and what coaching is or isn't and how it can help you. But even if not, it can give you a starting place. And the difficult thing is, I want this stream to be as useful as possible to everyone, but at the same time, the truth is, like anything in life, having someone there as a coach, a guide, a mentor, whatever, a teacher, whatever role they are, it usually is more beneficial than trying to do it yourself. So you can watch YouTube videos and you can teach yourself to cook, and you can try something and then learn from the mistakes you make along the way. But if you had someone there, they might be like, oh, hold on, you don't want to do that because X, or you have the heat on a little too high. This is what's gonna happen if you leave this here, so you want to turn it down to this because this is where you want it to be. Like if you have it too high and you're cooking a piece of meat, you're gonna burn the outsides, but the inside's gonna be raw. So if you turn it down a little bit, the outside will take a little bit longer and it will still develop the sear, but the inside will also cook, right? So similarly, in coaching, it is the case where you can go ahead and use the resources that I'm talking about here. Buy some things. I know one of you purchased a book that I recommended already, and so you can certainly get through that kind of stuff, but it will probably help to actually work with someone one-on-one a little bit more if you want to go down that road, if you can. Yes, I'm taking questions, and I'm taking questions on things such as trauma, grief, things you're struggling with, anything like that. So if you have something related to trauma and grief, go ahead, start asking, and I'm happy to jump into it and ask you some questions back, and who knows, maybe there's something that I can provide to at least get you started. So if you want to, go ahead and start, but what I'm going to do to get started on my end is switch my screen over and pull up Reddit, and if we have to jump back and forth between looking at stuff on Reddit and talking with chat, we can do that. Just see how it goes. And you guys can also ask questions about the stuff that's on my screen. Okay, what is my take on depression? What is the cause of chronic depression and potential ways out of such a state? Really good question. So I really need to put a disclaimer on this, which is down below in the About bio. I am not a medical professional. Do not take anything I say as medical advice. And, please, if you are looking for help managing a mental illness such as depression, you should reach out to a licensed professional. Okay, so fair enough. I can still give my opinion on it, though, and I can talk about the ways that I overcame it because I was depressed. I agree, and I think most people, they find that therapy isn't working really well lately, right? Or they say things like, well, you just got to find the right one, but I've been through like 8 of them. What the fuck, right? So I'll give you some of my own background here. I was really depressed starting at really the first point that I could become aware and was thinking. So as a child, like 7 years old, like I might have known I felt bad, but I wouldn't have even registered as depressed. I didn't know I was depressed. My brain hadn't developed enough to think and be aware of it, right? But as I got into like middle school, things started to come through, and this was as a result of parents getting divorced, moving around a lot, not being able to really make friends, both because I was moving around so much and as an introvert. Parents got divorced because dad was not so awesome, alcoholic. I don't want to suggest that I was ever like beaten or anything like that, but while it's not a competition, it really wasn't the case that, again, I wasn't like molested or anything like that, but I was certainly depressed. This led to, in high school, suicidal, on pills. I was locked up in a mental hospital for about 2 weeks at one point. Just like no one had any idea what to do with me. I was a straight A student in all the honors classes and everything, and by high school, like, I just stopped caring. I was good enough to cruise on by and get passing grades. And then this carried through my adult life. I was depressed as an adult. I was in really bad relationships. I was in, a really awful, abusive relationship, physically, mentally. Again, not that I was like regularly hit or anything, but I certainly had like an iron thrown at me, and it luckily hit my shoulder rather than my head. And it got to a point where I did get out of that, and I met someone that I really cared about, and I thought things were good for a few years, and then they cheated on me, and I like really hit rock bottom. So I have a significant amount of experience. Let's see if I can get that back in focus. Come on, camera. I have a significant amount of experience trying to overcome this personally, right? I have been on medication. I have been suicidal. I have been locked up. I have spent the past 15 years really trying to figure out how to fix myself and arrive at this point. And it involved a lot of work. It involved a lot of forgiveness. It involved a lot of getting past trauma and grief and all that kind of stuff. Thank you. I think when I look at the state of, modern psychology and all that kind of stuff, we focus a lot on the symptoms, right? And they go, oh, well, you have a chemical imbalance. I think the number of people who naturally have some kind of chemical imbalance is like absolutely fucking minuscule. I don't believe that the majority of us have these issues. I will say that I do think in our modern world, with a lot more unnatural toxins, we're eating food that has all sorts of chemicals in it, we're taking more and more drugs, this is starting to affect us and being passed down to the babies being born, right? In the same way that they say, pregnant women shouldn't smoke or drink, they should probably say something like, and you should also not eat McDonald's, right? Because it is filled with a ton of junk and like preservatives and all this other kind of shit. Or like prepackaged food or something. Like, try to eat more natural, healthy foods. Try to not expose yourselves to too many toxins, or use more all-natural products or something like that. I do think this is maybe why we see increases in just illnesses, deformities, things like that. To be fair, this is not my licensed medical background saying all this. It's just my hunch. Nonetheless, even with those issues kind of on the rise, I think, as we kind of see nowadays, I thank God for modern medicine to kind of help address those things. I really don't believe that the population is, this having this many issues with chemical imbalances. That the first place, where the main place, is like, okay, we're gonna put you on pills and then we're just gonna manage it. We're gonna manage your depression and all that kind of stuff. That seems stupid to me, because there are root issues not being addressed. And I've talked about this in some other streams. If you have gone through painful, traumatic things that cause you grief, or you learned misinformation, or you learned lessons that has in part driven your life, like it was in the fears, the thoughts like, I have to do this or I can't do that or whatever, leading you away from maybe what you would naturally want to be doing or feel like you should be doing. I think depression is your mind and your body's and your soul's way of telling you you're not doing the right things. Now, that doesn't mean it's just as easy as, okay, well, I'm going to start doing the right things now, right? That's not it. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, or anything like that, because you can be in a real bad place and you might just need something to like help you get by to start working on the shit and figuring it out. What I don't really think makes a whole lot of fucking sense, and I think people are getting frustrated with therapists. I think coaching is exploding as an industry for a reason. I think therapists themselves are bringing coaching into their therapeutic practices, is the fact that simply trying to manage symptoms is dumb. And I think the pharmaceutical industry would love that, because it's like, cool, you're going to just stay on pills. But I don't think... I think we should really be looking, what is the root cause of depression? Well, it's you are feeling like your life is out of alignment with, let's say, who you are, right? Who you be, who you want to be, who the job you want, the type of relationship you want, all these kinds of things. Depression is your mind, body, and soul's signal to say something isn't right here. You're doing something wrong, and I don't approve of what you're doing. The reason you're typically doing it is because you are somehow likely being driven by fear, misinformation, something like that. And who knows where it could have come from. It could be, it doesn't need to necessarily be something uber traumatic in the sense of like one major event, like pick your trigger warning. You were held up at gunpoint or something, and your house was robbed, and now you don't feel safe in your own house. And that would obviously cause problems, because if you can never feel safe in the one place you're really supposed to feel safe, then you're never gonna feel safe in general, and you're always gonna be like going around like this, and that is going to take a psychophysiological toll on you, right? So that has to be addressed. And I don't think, putting someone on pills and being like, okay, how can we manage the fear of you, of you feeling like you're never safe? Like, so this person is just supposed to manage the fear from then on out? Like, that is just fucking stupid to me. It really is. I am not trying to shit on the entire therapy industry. I do know some really good therapists. I have had them as clients. I have been a web designer and internet marketer for coaches and therapists primarily for the past 8 years. I know one therapist out in California who I greatly respect. I'm aware of one here in Phoenix who they are willing to kind of go do the deeper work, really get under there, the kind of stuff that I address as a coach. However, I think the problem is the modern industry goes CBT, which is a great tool, and it has its place. There is evidence that this works. If you actually look at what the evidence is, it is basically people's... Come on, camera. Get in focus, man. It is basically people reporting, well, my depression was 85% bad, and now I'm down to 55% bad or 45% bad. That's not a fucking solution. Yeah, it helped, but that's not... Okay, now I'm only 45% depressed instead of 85% depressed? That, I don't understand this. I don't understand why... And we go, oh, it's evidence-based, it works. And then we tell people, well, no, you're good now, right? Because we've brought you down to a manageable level, and you now have some mental tools that all the time your brain is fighting you. You are you now have arguments back against it. So when these thoughts come up, you now are trained to catch them and argue back at it. It's wouldn't it make more sense to just not have the fucking thoughts come up in the first place? Right. And 5 years, 15 therapists. I'm sorry, really. That's... I think you feel what I'm saying here. I have had somewhere around 7 therapists. One of them was good as a teenager, and unfortunately, as I was working with them, they took a position in a hospital and were like, sorry, I'm not available to keep doing this with you any longer because I just took this better job. So I'm like, okay, what the... like, and to be fair, shit probably wasn't going to get fixed with me as a teenager. There was a lot more to go. But, you know, that kind of sucked, right? The one I thought that was good and helpful. The rest just kind of want to... How are you feeling? How are you doing this week? Okay, how could you manage that thought next time? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? And to be fair, the actual work of going deep and really digging out these like really painful things that have led to this, it is honestly the hardest thing I have ever willingly done or gone through and experienced. You know, obviously I've had some traumatic experiences like wife cheating on me. That's not something I willingly went through, but I went through the work to get over that, which I did have to willingly go through. And I try to tell every client this: look, it is not weakness to feel pain and break down and cry and do anything as we are dealing with this. It is the ultimate in strength and courage. It is so difficult to confront the biggest things that think about whatever your favorite video game is, right? We're talking about like the final bosses in your brain, like haunting you constantly, and like you're there with like your sword and shield, and you have to go up against like I mean like Illidan or like Satan himself or something. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's like in your mind these things are massive. Complicating the fact is that often you were victimized, and you're not wrong to kind of still want to be a victim, right? Because you're like, this happened and it's fucking my shit up, and why should I not feel angry or upset about this, right? It's... you got a point. Everyone has a point if they have gone through some shit and it has led to them being depressed, where they look back on it, it's like, but that happened to me. And you're stuffing it down. And what happens is, from my experience, again, as I was depressed, as I was going through everything, it's the case where all of the stories that you have developed around the shit you went through, like the real big things in your life that like really hurt you, or maybe just a series, like a significant series of death by 1,000 cuts, and I kind of had a bit of that too, like through my teen years. Again, there was some shit in my childhood, but then because I was depressed and everything, like it just kind of like little things kept adding up as I was going through my teen years, and it just kind of kept getting worse and worse and worse until in my early 20s I felt like the shittiest, crappiest, worst person alive. Maybe I should stop talking with my hands so the camera doesn't get out of focus so much. I'm capable of managing my life very well. I pretty much function normally, but every second of my life is pure suffering. I deeply feel something is missing. Okay? I'm sorry. Really. I'm really, really sorry. Not to diminish what you're going through, but I would just say that I personally, I think a lot of other people can relate or be there on some level. I personally can relate to what you're going through, and that doesn't take away from you and say that what you're going through isn't unique and its own thing. I don't know you, I don't know the shit you've been through, but I am really, really sorry, because I know what it's like to get up day after day, like go to work, come home, escape into video games, feel like you just don't have any... The worst part is, like, you... Maybe if there was some meaning or something there, it would justify the suffering, right? And, like, I didn't even have things to justify the suffering. And I kind of get the sense that that maybe is where you are too. You can tell me if I'm wrong or not, but just from that statement, when you feel like something's missing, right? It's like, why are we even... Why the fuck am I here? Right? Like, what the fuck is the point of all this pain? Like, if I got something out of it, if I got a fucking reward, then maybe it would kind of justify it. But I don't even have that. And it just is... Yeah, dude, I feel you. I mean, not really alcohol for me, it was weed. I'll be honest. But it's the same thing. I mean, it's not the same thing, but you know what I mean. It's the same thing that you're trying to do. You get home from work, and it's like, I don't want to think about my life. I'm going to... I've certainly drank. I've done... It's easier to tell the drugs that I haven't done than the ones I have. I haven't done heroin and meth. Let's leave it at that. Luckily. And then you are escaping into games and just trying to distract yourself. DMT. I haven't done that one, actually. Kind of curious how it went. Not gonna lie. Maybe that's awful of me as a life coach, but fuck it. We're here. Then you stay up all night, right? Because you don't want to go to bed, because you know as soon as you go to bed, you have to sleep, and then get up and do it again the next day. And it's just like, you're hanging on to just a few more minutes before you have to finally go to bed. Just a little bit more pleasure to make this all worth it. Damn. If I could ask, and I'm gonna get back to talking to you about the other stuff. What do you mean function normally after one ingestion? Like, how were you not functioning normally, I guess, for those 6 months? What was going on that it affected you? And did it affect you in such a way that it messed with what you're going through, the depression and all that kind of stuff at all? Did it, like, alter it? Did it make it better? Did it make it worse? You know, I'm kind of curious. Shattered my view on life and death entirely. Yeah, man, that... I say, man, I don't know if you're what you are, but yeah. How did that affect you going forward? How does it affect you today? I know it's a pretty quick experience, but it's super intense for that time. Yeah, I've heard that before, that it just feels like it lasts forever. I can tell you from tripping on psychedelics that you will... It's a real spiritual experience, right? And I'll tell you that I was never an atheist. I might have been something like agnostic, like, yeah, I believe something's there, I don't really know what it is, and all that kind of stuff. About 2 years ago, I definitely went all in on God. I'm not Christian or any specific denomination or religion or anything like that, but definitely devoted to God, I'd say. Ooh, wow. So are you still struggling from the panic attacks and all that kind of stuff right now? Yeah, I bet. First off, good that the panic attacks aren't happening any longer. I know what you mean by reality kind of not being real from doing psychedelics myself. or that there's, let's say, maybe more to reality, was my experience, right? So you're, I'll share something that I probably haven't shared with too many people, actually. I was doing mushrooms once. This was 8 years ago. And I saw... I had this brief vision that it's seared into my mind, where I kind of like zoomed out of just me. I was in an apartment at the time, so you can imagine that there was an apartment building and there would have been other people in their apartments and all that kind of stuff. And I zoomed out of it just being me, and all of the real world kind of like faded away. And instead it was like kind of something like from the Matrix. You know how Neo sees, and he just sees the code, and so when he's looking at like the agents, they're just the code. It's not the reality overlay, the Matrix reality overlay. But the interesting thing was noticing that kind of everyone was interconnected energetically, but then, you know, they were certainly their own, like, let's say, balls of energy or consciousness. And I think that's really interesting because at this point in time, some pretty smart researchers are hypothesizing about like a field of consciousness, right? Like, where is consciousness coming from? Well, it's possible that it is one big field, and we are all kind of interconnected via this field, where that it kind of like flows through us and all that kind of stuff. So I certainly think my experience with it gave me a... Yeah. And isn't that interesting that you and I are not the only ones? That people who have tried psychedelics or done things like this report that often they have similar experiences, and people will say like, well, you were on drugs, and you're like, no, that was one of the most real experiences that I've ever had. In fact, it was more real than the normal reality we experience here, right? Because it was almost like you could see the code in the Matrix. Right, yeah, cool. So, you're probably not ever going to have a therapist that says like, oh, right on, DMT. I'm glad that was a positive experience for you, but I'm not a therapist, so that works. So let's get back to the depression stuff. If I may ask, and you don't have to answer anything you don't feel confident answering publicly, but I will take a moment to say, if you or anyone else in the chat wants to reach out and just ask some questions privately and stuff, the link to the Discord is down below. We have like a little community going on that's super positive, and you can DM me in Discord and I can get it through there. So, you know, that option is available for anyone who doesn't want to share stuff publicly. I would totally respect that, and I can totally talk anonymously and say, okay, just someone, right? But if you're cool answering in the chat, like, let's go with it. Cool. Yeah, I'd love to have you, and if you want to follow and all that kind of stuff, that'd be awesome. So, but let's keep going. If I may ask, you say you're depressed. Thank you for the follow. Have you been through some significant trauma? And I know you talked earlier about having delusions as a child. I would therefore ask, did something happen in your childhood? Oh yeah, multiple. How comfortable do you feel sharing that right now? Okay. I'm going to leave it up to you. You can tell me what details. I might have to ask some more just to kind of figure it out and see where we go. But not as you talked about it. Okay. Alcoholic father. Totally relate to that. That's tough. Mentally ill mother, that's... Whew. Yeah, that's not a good mix. Alcoholic father, mentally ill mother. I can't say I relate to that, the mentally ill mother part, luckily. Thank God. But, ooh, shit. That's tough. Okay. I'm really, really sorry. Oof. I'm really, really sorry for the experiences you've been through, and not to be cliche and about it, but genuinely, I really don't think anyone could say that anyone deserves that. Certainly not you. No one deserves to have their brother, you know, beating them up for 40 minutes. I understand. I can't say that I went through the same traumas that you did. I didn't have a brother beating me up. Sure. I have some good news for you. Yeah. So I do have some good news for you, though, is that you could actually get past that extreme anger and okay, so I didn't have a bully, but I did have a guy who fucked my wife while I was supposed to be with her, and she was supposed to be with me. So I have absolutely had some dreams. I have had some fantasies that would make Dexter Morgan blush. I mean, I have planned out some really, like, nasty shit. And to the point where it's like, not that I was ever gonna do it, but I'll certainly think about how I'd get away with it. Okay, I'd have to have a vehicle that's not mine. I couldn't bring my cell phone because then GPS would, you know, people would know that I went there, you know, which would, that kind of thing. How, we'll say this. I hope that, yeah, no problem. If you have to cut out and do your thing, that's totally cool. Thank you for interacting. This has been really awesome. I've been hoping for people to interact on the stream with me and ask me some questions and stuff. And oh, jeez. Emergency responder. I know a few of those. First off, thank you. Second off, I know you see some shit. And I know that that's a tough job. So, yeah, right. Seriously, first off, thank you. Like, you know what I'm saying. Like, it's a job that needs to be done, and you obviously know that. And everyone should be giving this person a round of applause, because to go through all that kind of trauma and then get into a job where they help people and see some of the worst of humanity is commendable. Really, like, thank you for what you're doing. In the same way that we might thank a soldier for their service for going over and fighting for our freedom or something. Like, that's actually a really big deal. Me too. And a lot of that was because I I think I could probably get through it now if I wanted to, although I don't feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this and helping people with this kind of shit, and it provides the meaning in my life. I think I could short-term get through it, but, you know, I really struggled with day jobs and corporate and all that kind of shit. So, I feel you. So, here's the deal. You asked initially, what are my thoughts on depression? I said depression is a symptom. It's not just because, like, and I don't think I'm really bullshitting you here, and I don't think it's any big fucking surprise after you just told me about some of that trauma that you went through as a kid and everything you've dealt with. It's not like, oh, your life was fine, but fuck, why am I depressed? Well, maybe I have a chemical imbalance, right? I am not suggesting if you're on medication to get off of it. Please do not listen to me for medical advice. Every other fucking normal disclaimer, I am not a medical doctor, da 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 da. With that said, I don't feel that the model nowadays of just helping people manage to get through week after week and supplementing with medication is a solution. Management isn't bad, but there should still be some kind of end goal. Okay, well, if depression is the symptom, saying that there's shit that's... yeah, I feel you. I don't want to get into meds too much because, again, not a medical doctor, but I think you, at this point, know where I'm feeling on it, and I'm not on meds anymore, for the record. So... where's the depression coming from? You still have these stories, beliefs, things that are making you feel empty inside from these past events. And that, those stories, those beliefs, if in therapy you may have like learned this from kind of the CBT model, if they've ever gone through it with you or whatever. It's like your stories and beliefs affect your thoughts, affect your actions. Right? And then it can be cyclical too. Well, if that's the case, and it really is, we need to change the stories and beliefs down at the root, and that's going to change your thoughts. So if your thoughts are effectively depression or depressive thoughts, right? They're fears, they're doubts, they're just feeling down. And when I say thoughts, I'm not only saying like the actual words or sentence that comes into your brain necessarily. It's also psychophysiological, right? So as you are kind of dealing with negative thoughts, you're also feeling negative, right? You feel tired, you feel worn out, you feel depressed, your shoulders are slouched, or you're tensed up, because anxiety and depression are two sides of the same coin. I often feel like something needs to happen in my reality in order for me to change. I became a very careful observant. I see how my mind operates now, but I can't change the way I perceive myself without some kind of answer from the reality, confirmation from reality that I'm not a piece of shit. So I'll hopefully give you some insight here into what I do with clients. And I mentioned at the top of this that I had someone who was willing to allow me to discuss the work I'm doing with them. I can tell you that they operated similarly in the sense that they could manage and get through, but for them inevitably something would come along that would effectively trigger their traumas and send them down and to the point of like self-harm, suicidal thoughts, all that kind of stuff, right? The answer is not from outside of reality, or outside and reality. It actually can come from within here. The work I'm doing with them is working on examining their traumas and the shit that they went through, looking at it in a different light and processing it in a different way, and then working on forgiving those things. And when you go through this process, your beliefs and stories change. As that happens, it rewires your brain And if your beliefs and stories are the things that inform your thoughts change. So it's no longer about your thoughts being like, how am I going to just keep fighting these thoughts? Well, we're going to fight it with pills. We're going to fight it with tactics and all that kind of shit. Yeah, so if you're interested, I'm going to dive into it right now with you. If you're really interested in this, I covered it 2 nights ago on Tuesday. And I really went into it deep, and I'm going to give you a really shortened version, but I just really want to explain the impact here. I told you about my story, and it got to the point where I got out of... I'll cover it for anyone watching this now, though, and just for you here, but I'd recommend it if you're, like, really interested in kind of like, okay, how the fuck is this guy sitting here saying all this if he's saying that he went through some of the shit that I went through and all that kind of stuff, right? I am very introverted. I was always feeling like an outcast, hard to find friends and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, death by a thousand cuts. It got to the point I felt like the worst person on earth, and my first wife, when I was about like 19 or 20, I got with her. She, I don't mean to talk bad about someone, but it was like, well, if I'm the worst person on earth, then I deserve to be with the other worst person on earth. I had no business being with this person. It was fucking awful. It really was awful. I hope she's doing better now. I hope she has healed a lot of her own traumas and all that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to talk shit about her. I'm just saying those years of my life and our relationship was an utter train wreck. And the thing that kept me going was like, if for me, my relationship with a romantic partner was like the thing. I didn't necessarily care about having friends or this or that, but if I just had this person that I had a great relationship that I like really loved, that would make all the suffering okay. And the thing is, I was looking outside of myself for this, and it led me to be codependent on my wife, my second wife, who I met actually online just a few weeks after I told the first one I was done, and like I immediately fell for this person. I was convinced they were my soulmate. This person was the one, and all of my self-esteem, my self-worth, my value, my confidence, it was all based on being with this person. And we had a few great years, and there was so much love, and she also had some trauma and issues in her childhood, which led her to be codependent on me in different ways, but we had, codependencies that kind of work together, right? Things got very tough in 2015 for her. She was having issues with her boss, who was also close friends of ours, who were even renting us their house. Like, we were very entwined with these people, and they were starting to butt heads really hard. I was getting started with my own web design business, and I had it going, but like I needed to get it to where it was like cruising. And it wasn't totally there, but we were doing okay, but it was still a little tight. And also, neither of us wanted to be in Houston, which is where we were living at the time. And I wanted to get back to where I'm from, which is New Jersey. You can see New Jersey Devils shit behind me. Or just that area in the Northeast. We both did not like Texas. Neither of us were native from there. She moved to be with me while I was living there because I had moved there for X number 1. And I knew we had to get out of there. So we are having troubles finding places, and it's becoming more stressful day after day for her. And I'm like, if we can just get out of here, everything is going to be okay, right? And so I am busting my ass trying to figure out a way to like find a place up there. Eventually, we kind of settled on an Airbnb for a few months, and it was on a farm. It was like a 1-bedroom apartment, and there was another 1-bedroom apartment attached to this little building on a farm. I mean, like the whole like cow, horses, pigs, chickens. Like, it was an actual functioning farm, which was actually kind of cool, if I'm being honest, as much as that place does not have very good memories for me. So, it's the end of December, and we're gonna move early, like the second week of January in 2016. On her birthday, at the end of December, we kind of drove around Houston. We were like reminiscing about all these places and everything we had been, just kind of remembering, and like, hey, remember when we did this over here, or went to this restaurant, just having a good day. And that night we get home and she's like, I need to tell you something. And I joked like, what, you need to break up with me? And she got silent. And I'm like, prior to this moment, there was no reality where this person was not my soulmate. I was blindsided. I had zero idea that we had any problems because she would not speak up. You know, I thought like we had a really good relationship because we never fought. The problem is she just never fucking spoke because she was afraid to because of some of her upbringing. She proceeds to tell me that she has kind of started an affair with this manager at a grocery store she would shop at. And she has sent him some photos. She has met up with him in a parking lot. I guess they didn't go all the way or whatever, but kissing and feeling and stuff like that. And I am so stressed out trying to make this move happen, and we're like 2 weeks away from leaving. Everything's already locked in. Like, I'm like, you know what? Like, and not only that, my entire sense of self is built on this person. So if she leaves, I don't exist anymore, right? Okay, let's just get there and we'll figure it out. And I also, it was one of those things where I was like, I can justify it because she is so stressed. She basically had a mental breakdown and she just acted out a little bit and whatever. Then we do the move and it is awful. It took us a few extra days to get out of there. Not that I'm trying to hate on my ex, but like she moves pretty slowly, and when it came to packing and everything, like it just took longer than it should have. So luckily our friends were cool, said, yeah, if you guys need an extra day or two to get out, that's fine. We didn't leave it in a state that I would have loved, and they loved it even less, but you know, we were just doing the best we could. We had certain milestones we had to meet on this trip to kind of get to where we were going for certain dates, because we were staying at family along the way to make this cross-country drive with all our shit in a 26-foot U-Haul from Houston to New York. And it was brutal, and it again stressed her so much that she starts talking to this guy again after she promised me that she would cut off all contact with him. So then we get to New York, and we're there for like a week or two, and one day she walks over and she's like, I did it again. And this, now that we've moved and like I'm finally like resting and catching my breath, like we made it up there, not that we're in a permanent position or anything like that, this just absolutely broke me. There were entire days where I just stared at my computer screen. I couldn't even work. I couldn't do anything. I just got up, ate, you know, I just sat there doing nothing but just staring at the monitor, just like trying to process this. Yeah, with the same guy. Guy number one. Let's call him guy number one. Real douchebag too. Just the kind of shit he was doing, you know, to try to like get her and steal her and all that kind of stuff. We work on trying to overcome that for the few months we're there, and we're also trying to work on getting clients. Our financial situation is getting worse because I'm barely working and I can't even get clients because like I am so fucked up. And like truthfully, like I'd get on video and I'd try to sell a website, and I think people just knew, you know, like it's really hard to fake being like, yeah, I'm excited, I'm ready to go, you know, all that kind of stuff, and then feel from me that that's the truth and that I was capable of handling it. So I can't even blame anyone who just didn't do anything, right? I told you that the place we were staying in was a one-bedroom apartment attached to another one-bedroom apartment. Just so happens a single dude is living in the apartment next door. And, you know, they started being friends, but I'm like, well, I'm here, I'm watching this, you know, it should be okay. And the money situation's getting worse and worse. We're starting to really put a lot of stuff on credit. And we had built up our credit because we were planning on buying a house. So we had actually had a number of credit cards with very high limits at this point. we were there for a few months. We got there like end of January. The move took like over a week to just travel across the country because we did stay with family for a day or two along the way. And it was about the middle of April that we moved in, signed a 1-year rental agreement for a house in the Poconos of Pennsylvania, and moved into there and all that kind of stuff. And I think like a week or two in, she got a text message on her phone, and I saw it come up because her phone was just laying out somewhere, and it was from the farmer's wife saying something like, well, he feels something. You know, I don't even remember what it said, but it was obviously like, what the fuck is going on? So I go and sit down with her at the kitchen table, and I'm like, you know, hey, what's up with this text message? And she's like, did it again. I will continue to talk, even though I think you're not there right now, and you can just maybe check in on the VOD and see what happened next. This led to a few months of just absolute hell between us, and she, it kind of went back and forth between us being together or her wanting to be with this guy. Tons of lies, tons of deceit, her using me at certain times. Just the worst of someone betraying you, basically, short of sleeping with someone else. And then that happened. There was a situation where she had to go back to the farm because we had no money, and they were going to pay her to do some work. And for whatever reasons, which you can watch the other stream, to really get the full picture of how this all went down, she wound up sleeping with him twice while she was staying there for a weekend before coming back home. And I didn't find out immediately. It was about a month to a month and a half later that she told me the full truth. This led to 3 years of hell. Our financial situation was so bad that we would pay off a credit card 1 week, a minimum, and it would have like $53 of credit on it, and I would hand her the card and say, here's $53 on this card to pay for groceries this week, and maybe, you know, 27 on another card or something like that, and like that's what we have for groceries this week. So now we're in financial hell because we are getting eaten alive by interest. I'm barely able to get jobs. I am absolutely shattered, you know, by everything that has happened over the past 7 months. And it was 3 years from the middle of 2016 to really the middle of 2019, when we finally called it quits, of trying to repair that, trying to do anything we could to get out of the financial hole we were in, just barely surviving, scraping by every day, suicidal thoughts, depression, murderous thoughts. She was suicidal as well. All these things, right? And I've said this line before, and I really stand by it. In Dante's Inferno, there's a reason that the betrayers are at the bottom level of hell, right next to Satan himself. Even the murderers are on like level 5, right? If someone has your trust and you stab them in the back repeatedly in the worst possible ways, there's really nothing worse we can do from one human to another. And that can take multiple forms, right? It's not just, well, a romantic relationship. It could have been your parents not parenting and betraying you in that way, right? So how the fuck do you get past this, right? The answer is doing trauma and grief recovery work, eventually getting to the place where you forgive them, and it frees you up from this. And in the process of going through that work, first off, again, to be very clear, forgiveness is not what you did is okay. What she did is not okay. It will never be okay. It's simply me saying I am going to let that go, and I'm going to move on with my life and not have it hold me down anymore, right? In the process, to get to that point where you can do that, you have to you kind of mentioned something really interesting before. I'm going to scroll up because I want to say this. You are a very careful observer. You kind of have to observe from a little bit of a more objective standpoint, where you are really looking at everything, kind of like getting it out on paper. And again, there is the hard part of saying, like, I forgive you. And that sucks. I'm not going to lie. When I say that it was the hardest work I've ever willingly gone through, I mean it. And I had experienced forgiving other people before, thank God, because I couldn't have started with this big subject, in the moment at least, with how much our life was hell. Like, thank God I had, at that point, 10 plus years of study into trying to fix myself, trying to do all sorts of shit, life hacks, productivity, all sorts of, like, everything, therapy, you know, all these kinds of things. I'm going to answer your question in just a second, I promise. But the answer is, you can go through this work, and as you go through it, you really do change your beliefs and stories around it to where you go from victim to survivor. Ideally, you'll get to thriver as well, because so victim to survivor would mean, yeah, okay, I was a victim, but now I'm past that. And then thriver would be, that made me stronger and I'm better now, right? And that's how I feel. Like, I could have never said it at the time, but I didn't even really like myself most of my life. I was depressed, I was miserable, all this kind of shit. And I wasn't living the life I wanted. I was being held back by all these fears, doubts, everything else. It required something coming along that completely broke me. I hit rock bottom. And I had to rebuild myself into a new person, and some of my beliefs changed, not just as far as her and the relationship and all that. I mean, literally how I lived my life had to change a bit. And I rebuilt myself into someone who I was like, I never want to be someone. You can't control other people. You can't control. Who knows if my wife in 10 years or whatever, if I have one at that time, cheats on me. But I never want to be the person who's broken by that again, right? I want to be the person who's like, this really sucks. I'm going to shed some tears over it, but get the fuck out. Not, I need to stay with you because literally my self-image, my self-worth is built on you. So if you're gone, I don't exist, right? It doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't. It doesn't mean that the memories have disappeared, and it doesn't mean that I don't care. And I just mentioned this to someone else the other day. Someone was trying to get me to watch the show Ozarks. I have no idea if this is... I hear it's a very good show. I don't watch it. Because in the first episode, it basically, like, starts out, this dude's wife is fucking other dudes. That's kind of like the thing in the first, episode. It comes out and is revealed, and by the end of the episode, he's kind of trapped with her, and they have to go live a very difficult life. And so I'm just looking at my own experience, like, gets cheated on and was kind of trapped for a while in a very difficult situation. I just don't prefer to watch that. It's not that I was triggered or breaking down. I was just like, this is just not really that comfortable for me to watch. But it wasn't triggering me. It wasn't like, oh my god, the pain, like I can't even deal with this or anything like this. I could deal with it. And if I felt like the show was worth it, if I was like really into it otherwise, then I might have even stuck with it because I can get through it. But you don't forget these things. There is nothing that I can do or help you with where you're gonna forget your brother beating the shit out of you. Like, that's not gonna happen. But you can get to a point where you're not affected by it anymore. It's just a memory. It's just, yeah, that happened, but it's no longer a story. It's no longer feeding stories or beliefs about me. Okay, you can tell me when you get back. I hope the rest of you are enjoying this, if anyone else is watching. I'm not really sure. Try not to see how many viewers there are, because like that's just distracting to me, so I turned that off. But I hope... I didn't know this is where this was going. I thought we were going to be looking at Reddit, but this has actually worked out a lot better, in my opinion. So I hope if some of you have questions, you want to like talk about this kind of shit, you're more than welcome to chat. Like, I would really love to discuss this with people. Again, you can join the Discord. You can DM me to make it private so that your name doesn't come up on here publicly. I can just read off there. I always have Discord up, and I try to glance over at it here and there. I turn off the notifications and stuff so that I'm not like being distracted by other shit on my computer. But if anyone wants to talk in the chat and everything, cool, thank you. I'm really glad that you're enjoying this. If anyone does want to talk about shit, you can totally DM me, and I will keep it anonymous. Yeah, we're gonna give our friend a minute to get back. Maybe just listen to some music, and I'm gonna get a drink because I've been going for over an hour now. Actually, let's switch to this one. This stuff, Limitless Cherry Lemon Bliss, this has something called L-theanine in it, which is a supplement. Not that I'm huge on supplements, because a lot of them are kind of bullshit. There's a few that are really good. L-theanine is one of them. It actually like chills you out and relaxes you. So if you're looking for a drink that has 0 calories and you're into the whole LaCroix thing, I found this at Walmart, and it's really nice to drink at night because it does actually kind of like chill you out a little bit more as you're chilling at night. If you're playing a game or watching some dude talk about how his wife fucked another dude on Twitch, you know, whatever, you can just chill a little bit more. To reiterate some of what I'm saying before he or she or whoever they are comes back. It is totally possible to get to a point where you are not plagued by intrusive thoughts, negativity, bad beliefs, all that kind of stuff, which is really the root of depression. Because those things drive you usually in a certain direction in your life, and you're making decisions based off these things. Like you are not doing the things you want to do out of fear, or you're staying stuck in places because you don't want to feel loss or abandoned or something, right? So you're holding on to people who are maybe not right for you or whatever else. And so depression is your being's way of saying, you're doing the wrong shit. This is not what you should be doing. I don't like what you're doing. But you're fighting with yourself. Your ego and your fears, your ego and like your prefrontal cortex is like being informed by your fears, which is being informed by these beliefs and stories, are trying to go this way because this is the information that you know. But then like your subconscious is like, no, I'm gonna make you depressed because like you're not doing what I want you to be doing. Like we're supposed to be in sync, not your fucking fears. You're supposed to be listening to like who you are, right? Therefore, the answer to this problem is you need to change those beliefs and stories. The way to do that is diving into your trauma or grief or whatever else it is, processing it in a different way, healing it, forgiving, and moving on. And in the process, your beliefs and stories change. That changes your thoughts. It changes who you are. You get to move forward without struggling with this shit anymore. After she cheated on me, you stayed together for a long time. Yes, we stayed together technically 3.5 years from the very first time she told me something happened with guy number 1. But that was a 6 to 7 month span of her just cheating and lying and doing all sorts of fucked up shit. It was like a 6 to 7 month mental breakdown for her. And then she finally kind of came to her senses, looked at what she did, became suicidal because she realized the absolute devastation that she caused. Even if she didn't want to be with me, that would have been okay, but obviously that's not the way you do it, right? No one should be doing that to anyone else. You could just say, I'm done because I can't handle this stress. She wasn't capable of doing that, and she was looking for an escape, right? Because she didn't feel confident, capable to go out on her own and land on her own feet. It instead was well, I need to jump to someone else who will take care of me. So we did stay together. Some of the reasons are our financial situation was awful, and we were now locked into this house. We were only a few months into a 1-year lease. No money to even move out. We were really kind of trapped there. And it's I need your help to make money, right? In the sense that I was trying to work so much every day to make whatever money that I couldn't handle the household. We had this guy, but we also had her dog, who unfortunately recently passed away this year to cancer. So we had 2 dogs that need to be taken care of. It's a 3-bedroom house. I barely have time to even cook for myself if I wanted to, much less shop. We were living in a very remote area of the Poconos where it was 25 minutes to get to the grocery store. So not easy to get things, no family or friends around, no support system, anything like that. Just very isolated, very trapped, stuck together. And I had so many fears because, again, prior to this happening, anyone who knew us, it was they're amazing together. I mean, we never fought, like I said, and that's actually a bad thing. You do need to have fights, because if you're not fighting, it means one of you is not being honest with the other one, right? At least one of you. You need to fight sometimes. You need to tell your truth. You need to speak your truth. And she was just bottling it all in. And there really was a lot of love there. And so the other part was, this person was my soulmate. Okay, I can recognize they had a 6-month mental breakdown from the stress. They weren't capable of handling it. They had a lot of problems as a child and all that kind of shit. I'm going to do my best to forgive them to get back to what we had, because I thought that was it couldn't get better than that. And again, I'm still operating under this mental paradigm of this person is my everything, and who I am is built on them, right? As time went on, it was just such a struggle financially that we couldn't, we never even had a shot to heal the relationship. And if I'm being honest, I am glad that was the case, and I almost feel like it had to be that way, because there was a lot of learning in that time period. We tried. We did a lot of learning about fixing relationships, fixing infidelity, overcoming grief and trauma. So much of the stuff that I'm talking about now to everyone is stuff that I had to experience. And I had done a significant amount of study. I had done trauma and grief recovery before this all occurred, and I certainly had a pretty strong fucking background in self-development and all this kind of stuff. But that is when it had to all be put into practice, and I was actively testing not just some of these bigger concepts that I'm talking about, but also practical tips to get me through day by day, right? And in the process, we're also trying to grow in other ways. again, we were trying to get the business back on track and make money so we could start paying down these debts and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, we're not just learning about fixing our relationship, we're learning about sales, we're learning about, you know, all this shit. And she grew significantly in the process too. If I'm being really honest, she put on a fucking clinic in 2017 as far as like personal growth and self-development. Some of the stuff that she was doing, wish this thing would stop going out of focus. Some of the shit she was doing was remarkable as far as her own personal growth and all that kind of stuff. So like full credit to her. And I can say now, by the way, you asked, does it hurt? I have told her multiple times, I don't want you to feel guilty, like you don't deserve to go forward in life and not find love or whatever because you fucked up so bad. Because I knew she did. I want you to have the best possible life. It's not going to be with me. It got to the point where we both recognized that we wanted different things in life if we were being really honest as far as our lifestyle goes. And truthfully, what she did was just too big, and I just, as much as I could forgive her, I couldn't forget it. And that's okay. And like I said, when you get past trauma, it doesn't mean you forget the things that happened. That trust was irreparably damaged. It just, there was no way to get back to a point where I could trust her doing anything and not have some kind of fear in the back of my head that I just didn't want to feel. It's just not fair to me to struggle with that. You know? There were other reasons. Our lifestyles don't mix. What she wants to do with her life is what she wants to do with her life, and that's totally fine. And I wish her, I legitimately wish her all the happiness in the world. And I'm not just saying that like to look good on stream or to appear like enlightened. Like, no, I really fucking mean that. She is a human being who fucked up. But the thing that you often come to understand in doing this work is it's less about them doing it to you and more about them being traumatized and they continued the cycle onto you. And one of the big realizations I had, not necessarily with her, it was I was working on my alcoholic father. As I was working with someone else, this other coach, somehow we got to the point where she said, no one wakes up in the morning looking to be the biggest like asshole possible. And when she said that, it made me go, if all this trauma that I've gone through and all this grief I carry brought me to the point that I was depressed, suicidal, locked up, I had all these struggles, all this pain, right? And I know that's born out of the experience I went through. What kind of experiences did my father have to go through to be an alcoholic? And it was so bad that he needed a liver transplant. I think it was about 7 years ago now. When I thought about what would have to happen to me for me to become like him, my anger basically evaporated, and all I felt was pity. Because I was like, God damn, that must be fucking miserable to be that. And it was no longer, he's doing this to me, it's more, that's his pain, that's what he's carrying, that's who he is. Do you understand what I'm saying? So let me read what you said. What if you don't have the answers or not a full story allowing you to move on and no way of knowing? Can you... I gotta be honest, I'm not totally sure I understand the question. If you could just give me a little bit more context about what you're asking. If you're willing. Again, you don't have to share anything you don't feel comfortable with. right? You don't have to. Oh, man, I'm sorry. Fucking bot. It's the first time that's ever happened. I don't know what you said. I'm sorry that it deleted your message automatically. 90 messages were deleted. Shit, that's not good. Okay. Cool, you got it through. Good job. I'm gonna change that because I don't give a fuck, obviously. So, you don't know your bully's story. I don't know my dad's full story. I do know that my grandfather was pretty strict. I do know that my father was the baby of the family. I do know that my grandfather was very traditional, and my dad is not necessarily like a hippie or a rebel or something, but he had his own way. And my grandfather, I think, definitely felt that my father wasted his potential. And I think as my dad grew up, he was really hard on him and trying to make him follow a certain path and line, and that wasn't working. I mean, I don't know the case, but knowing that my grandfather was a Depression era kid, you know? I mean, I can remember my grandfather owned a auto parts store for a long time, and by the end of their lives, they were worth I don't know about my grandfather's life, but by the end of my grandmother's life, my grandfather died first, I think her net worth was about $1 million. They were not poor. They had a gorgeous house on an inlet that led out to the ocean in New Jersey, which is not the cheapest state to live in. I remember we had some dinners where my grandmother would boil some macaroni and then mix it with like milk and sugar. And so that would be like one part of the dinner, and the other part of the dinner would be a slice of Spam. And like no veggies or anything like that. It was just macaroni in milk and sugar and a slice of Spam. So the point is a mindset from the Depression era that is like survive. And again, my grandfather, for as strict and traditional as he was also a pillar of the community. He was the fire chief. My family actually has 4 generations of firefighters in a town in South Jersey, starting with him. The firehouse that he, was like chief of, still has a flag at the top of their display case in his honor. They went to church. They were involved in the community. And so, again, I can build an image of my grandfather. I can build an image of my dad and see all the ways that he was a fuck up. And I'm not trying to hate on my dad. We're actually cool at this point, but I was a fuck up too. So I'm not being hypocritical here. I'm just saying I can see how likely my grandfather was very hard on him. I'm sure he got a number of ass whippings as a kid because, I don't see my grandfather being a modern day parent. It's like, no, you can't spank your child. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he hit him with fucking something wooden, not just his hand, like that level. I don't know for sure. I don't know what it is. The point I'm trying to make here is it doesn't really matter. What matters is you can look at it through your own experience and go, what kind of things would need to happen to me to make me be that kind of person, where I could do some of those things, right? Where it would twist or warp me so much that I'd be in the realm of it. Maybe not exactly, but I'd be in the realm of this level of pain, right? It's not usually a surprise that most bullies are getting beaten at home. Like, there are serious issues at home, and they are taking their pain after they are getting hit or damaged in some way, and then they're taking it out on other people, right? So again, you can just kind of know those kinds of things and go, all right, I don't know exactly what they went through, and it doesn't really matter. Simply that they were traumatized as well, and unfortunately, I was on the receiving end of them continuing the cycle. The good news is, you have the power to break the cycle. For yourself, and also for the other people around you, because if you're feeling this way, this affects your interactions and what you do with other people as well. So, while I wouldn't say that your main purpose should be you should do this work for the rest of the world, it actually kind of works out that way, where the more people who are actually truly healing their trauma and pain and stopping the cycle, the better the world becomes, which is kind of what I'm trying to do with this channel and this community and everything. So if you're down with that, I would love to have you stick around. Check out some of the other streams. Thank you so much for chatting. This has been fucking awesome, and I know other people have already said they really enjoyed it. So this is the kind of stuff I'm hoping to do more regularly with people going forward. And so hopefully more and more people start finding this and chatting and speaking up. And if you guys got something out of it, I'd really appreciate follows, join the Discord, all that kind of stuff. You know, I'd really be interested in seeing this grow, because you know, we're trying to heal people, right? We're trying. I don't just want to be a guru that is talking and spitting out life hacks and here's how you manage depression better. Fuck that. It's not fucking helping. That's the problem, is that shit's not helping. I really would like to see people, like, whether they work with me directly one-on-one or not, that's an option. I am a coach. I do walk people through this. But even if not, what I wanted to bring up, I recommended a book in the other stream. And actually, one viewer has already purchased the book and started going through it. So I'm going to bring it up again. Let me pull this up on Amazon real fast. Got like some Asian-inspired song going on right now. Alright, let's hit a button on our handy-dandy stream deck. Boom. This book, Let Forgiveness Set You Free, a step-by-step workbook for letting go of the pain and finding peace, by Meredith Hook. Meredith Hook is a coach. She is a client. She's been my coach. She's been my client. And most importantly, I would consider her a really good friend at this point. Someone that I really, really respect. She runs a website called zensmarts.com, and she is a really interesting person. She meditates like 3 hours a day. She, at one point, thought she was going to be a monk over in India, and that was going to be her life. She really focuses on, again, from her own stress and everything going on in her life, she found meditation, she found mindfulness, but she's a very smart individual, and she focuses on kind of the marriage between old Eastern traditions, like meditation and all that kind of stuff, and the modern neuroscience that we are learning today. And in fact, she actually works with people at, I think it was Berkeley, that she knows, a neuroscience researcher, and like talks to her. And so she's really good about not just saying, oh, you should meditate. It's like, here's why, or if you're dealing with this, here's how you tackle it, and here's how it can apply to your life, and all this kind of shit. I recommended that she write a blog post, a guest blog post, on a site called Thrive Global once. And a book publisher read that article, found her website, and gave her a book deal. And this is the book that resulted from it, which is really, really cool. the cool thing about this book, in fact, I'm going to just run over here real fast and grab it because I have it. Alright. The cool thing about this book is that it's actually truly a workbook. In fact, I'm just going to switch back to this screen real fast so that you can see it large. Like, as you're going through the pages, well, there's a ton to fill out in here, and this book is like 160 pages of learning stuff, and you know, just she's teaching you as you're going. It's not just a bunch of worksheets to fill out. There are things to read, understand why you're doing what you're doing. This is a really good place to start, just to get going with forgiveness. I don't use this book when I'm working with clients. I use a more systematic process to address like specific events or traumas or whatever else. And I like that because the one-on-one interaction, I can hold them a little more accountable. I may get it. Let me just answer your questions real fast here. I had this idea for quite a while. You hear Twitch doing this quite remarkable work, but it's pretty trash. Yeah, the thing is that I'm really trying to reach gamers, though. And so I have been thinking about ways to market and try to get the word out a little bit more to come here. Twitch is kind of trash as far as people being able to find what's going on. So I've been coaching gamers for a little while. Now I'm really beginning to market by streaming on Twitch, and now that I've gotten some of the technical shit figured out, there was like some technical difficulties here in the first week or two, but I think I got the setup going at this point where it's pretty solid, and now it's going to be time to kind of go out on other social media, maybe do some guest posts and stuff like that to try to bring in a little bit more of an audience and reach more people. So now, as far as your question, if the language barrier won't be too hard, I don't think so. You know, here, page 78. I'll read it to you. A lot of your life is spent waiting. Studies published by Priority Management Pittsburgh and other companies indicate that the average person will spend 5 years of their lifetime waiting in line, 13 hours a year on hold with customer service, holy shit, and 19 full workdays stuck in traffic each year. Instead of letting it go to waste, you can use those times while you wait as an opportunity to practice forgiveness. You can decide if that's, you know, too much for you. And the other cool thing, let's go back over here. You can do the whole look inside thing at Amazon and just get a sense of her writing style, if this is going to be, you know, your thing, everything. There you go. That's who I was talking about, knowing that she bought the book. I really don't think it's going to be too difficult. I think, you know, it's not written in... She's not focusing on, like, big neuroscience terms where you're getting a... You're definitely learning along the way, but this is not a science book, right? This is a book for the normal everyday person who doesn't have a background in this stuff at all to just go through and start filling it out and start working through things and practicing forgiveness and using it to let go of your pain and start finding peace. And really, I believe, based on what you said, where we started when you asked about depression, where we got to when I was asking you about your experiences and everything, this is the stuff that I see over and over and over. This is where I think mainstream therapy is failing. And I just want to be clear, it's not just my opinion. There are other people who are experts in trauma recovery that are therapists. And in fact, let me see, what's the Paul Conti I listened to a podcast with this guy. Let me switch back again. This guy, Paul Conti, is a major expert in trauma and grief recovery. His book, Trauma, the Invisible Epidemic, I really believe, I totally agree with that title, The Invisible Epidemic. It's a fucking epidemic. It is... He was on a podcast that I was listening to. I haven't had the chance to read this book yet. I'm really interested in it. I gotta get to it. But he was on this podcast, and the host asked, what do you think the current state of, healing trauma is in America? And he said, abysmal. Right? Because, and he was asked about stuff like CBT, and he's look, these things are arrows in your quiver. They can be used, these techniques can be used certain times where they can be effective and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, if you have people who are suffering and the root of it is trauma, you have to go in and work on the trauma, and you have to heal it, and you have to change the stories and beliefs around it. The stuff I'm saying to you right now is the same shit that one of the leading researchers of trauma and leading therapist who works with it and has his own practice and everything, this is the same stuff he's saying. And it's the same stuff being kind of recommended as far as how you get through it. And this is not the only book that you can purchase on it. You can just, again, you could look at Trauma, the Invisible Epidemic. I don't know how it is. I don't want to actually give a shout out for it, but after hearing him on the podcast, I agreed with everything he was saying. But this book is... Let's go back. It's $10.71. For $11, you could start to change your life. Sounds like a pretty good fucking deal to me. I want to just catch up on some of the stuff you said, so I don't miss it, because that would bother me to feel like I didn't address something. So you really like what I said. You can perceive your past experiences as things that made you stronger. I don't feel like this currently, and to be honest, I should. Yes, it really can be the case, and I want to be very honest and direct with you when I say this. I couldn't do what I'm doing right now at any other point in my life, but I can tell you that I feel truly that my entire life has been building up to this point, that I went through all these different kinds of types of traumas and griefs, culminating with being absolutely decimated, shattered. Like, I cannot tell you how bad it was when my ex cheated on me, and I cannot tell you the hell that I lived through for 3 years. I mean, every fucking day was a struggle to survive. It was absolutely brutal. And I feel like I went through that to come out the other side, and had to go through something so brutal, so that as I sit here, I can tell this story, and I can truly say it's totally possible to have a lifetime from when I was 4 or 5, which is when my parents were fighting and shit got bad and divorce and everything. Like, my earliest memories are of them fighting and the divorce and some abuse and stuff like that, leading up to 30 years later, the shit with my ex and living in absolute hell. And so, like, 30 years, and maybe just a few decent years in there. Just a few. Like I said, the first few years with my ex that cheated on me, those were pretty good, but it was still not good. But like, I wasn't good internally, but our relationship was good, and overall I thought it was good. So I'm saying, like, if you really want to heal from this, if you want to stop being depressed, if you want to get off the medication, all that kind of stuff, please don't, just on my fucking recommendation, keep doing it. I don't want to get sued. But if you if you buy this book, if you start to work on this stuff, if you start to understand what trauma and grief does, if you start to work on changing the beliefs and stories that come from it, if you start forgiving, your life is like, I can't tell you how good your life could be. Okay, cool. About being sued. Let me catch up on a little bit more of what you said. Pretty much everybody in my direct environment is traumatized and so on. Right, like that book title said, it's an invisible epidemic. Like, god damn, this fucking... Get in focus, camera. There we go, finally. I gotta get a better camera, I think. This is killing me. Yeah. So many people, more people than not, have some kind of trauma, if we're being really honest. It may not be a huge trauma, but if I'm being really honest, I feel like so many therapists have like collegiate book knowledge or university knowledge. They don't have the wisdom and experience of like going through these things. So when they're working with their patients, it's like, well, this is what they're saying, so this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to say. Here's the technique or the tool I'm supposed to use. And it's just like you feel so disconnected because it's like they don't fucking get it. And it's not, God, this camera is killing me. All right, I'm gonna put my hands down. It's not that they aren't trying to help, right? I know that all of my therapists were trying to help, but like especially the last one, who I went to because of my ex cheating. He was just so like disconnected and unaware of like what it was like to go through any kind of real trauma or grief. And he was sitting there just kind of like spouting the techniques and everything, and it was just a gigantic fucking waste of my time, if I'm being really honest. Like, and I feel like a lot of people who I talk to are like, yeah, I've been to a lot of therapists, most aren't good. And even the ones who are good, maybe I make a little bit of progress. It gets a little bit better. I'm coping a little bit better. I'm managing a little bit better. But it's still, it's not. And the thing is, you gotta, if you're gonna find a therapist, and that's totally okay. Like I don't have a problem with therapy as a thing if it works. But it has to be a situation where they are willing to go deep and be right there with you to address the biggest problems, and they have to know how to not just sit there and be with you as you talk about your trauma and grief, but go, okay, now let's work on getting past that. And if they know techniques to do that and they know about grief recovery and all that kind of shit, great. But if they're just gonna sit there and waste your fucking time with like, okay, how do you feel? Let's talk about this, with no real plan of action, you can decide for yourself if that's something that you want to continue to pursue, if you're currently with a therapist like that or not. I'm not going to tell anyone to not keep going with their therapist. I'm not going to tell anyone to get off medication, anything like that. I'm, again, not a medical professional. But I want to catch up a little bit again. You were struggling financially. You were in med school. That sucks. I'm sorry that your mother was spending the money that you were sending her on alcohol. Yeah. I'm really sorry. It sounds like you and I have had different experiences, but we've been through some of the same kind of shit in different levels, in different ways. And again, no doubt that you've had it rough, and there's no competition. I really want to be clear on this, and I say this a lot on this stream. Apparently what I'm saying a lot lately is fuck this camera, because it's out of fucking focus again. I gotta figure out a way to like fix this thing. There. It doesn't matter there's no competition as far as pain and trauma. If you went through something that's worse than what I went through or easier, it doesn't matter. If you're feeling pain, then that's enough, and you are worth having it be healed. Just as a human being, you deserve that, right? This comes from Dr. Viktor Frankl in his book *Man's Search for Meaning*. He's like, look, he was someone who was in a Nazi concentration camp in World War II. And even he in the book is like, you don't have to have been in a Nazi concentration camp to have felt pain. It could just be your wife cheated on you. It could be that you had a bully that beat you up. It could be anything. It's still affecting you, and it should be healed, and you are worth it being healed. Yeah, so this is the problem with a lot of people who go through trauma, because especially as children, because your brain is not fully developed enough to process what happened to you and to recognize that like you were wronged, and it's just wrong, right? Like, even as adults, we might struggle with it because of past traumas that are kind of fucking with us. But like, I can tell you now, if someone cheated on me, I'd be like, okay, look, I know I wasn't 100% perfect in my relationship, but you fucked up and you were wrong, and get the fuck out. And like, I'm not gonna see that as like an attack on my self-worth. It's like, no, you're the fucking bitch, like, get the fuck out of here. As children, though, often it's like this bad thing is happening to us, and what do we learn as children? Well, if you're bad, you get punished. So I must be bad. This must be my fault, right? And you think that you are intrinsically bad, and you carry that with you, and that is another big part of the depression, is that you think these things happen to me, so like I must be bad. And it's not even necessarily consciously. It is a story and a belief deep down in your subconscious that this is misinformation you learned from these events. That is why it's so important that you heal these things and process them in a different way, because it will change that story. It will change it from you being not worthy to being worthy. It will change it from you being ashamed and guilty and not able to open up to being able to feel okay and open up and be vulnerable. And when you can open up and be vulnerable with people, you can have connection, you can have compassion, you can have all these things that lead to a fulfilling life where you're not depressed anymore. That's how this all works together. So I'd really implore you, I know, unfortunately, me simply saying, you shouldn't feel low. It's not your fault. You're worthy. I wish that what I just said there, I know it might have like a little effect, and I hope it has as much, the maximum effect on you. But I know that it's not going to truly undo those stories and everything. But what I can tell you is that, yes, I'm saying that is true, that you shouldn't feel low, that you should have self-confidence, and that you can get there. And that's the good news. The good news is that you can actually heal this. The thing is, it's your responsibility to heal it. And I want to be very clear, because a lot of people will go, it's not the victim's fault. I didn't say it's the victim's fault. It's not your fault that you had an alcoholic father. It's not your fault that your brother whooped your ass. It's not your fault you had a bully. However, it's your responsibility, unfortunately, now to deal with it. And I might even take the word unfortunately away, because if you decide to take that responsibility and you go through this work, you will find that you come out the other end a person who is likely better than someone who never went through that at all. And again, it's not a competition. It's not like, haha, I'm better than people who never went through trauma. That's not how I feel. How I feel is I can handle anything. I have been through so much shit And not only did I survive it, but I have overcome it to now I own this shit so well that I can get on the internet and talk about it to total strangers to help them. And I'm using my life now to aid in the healing of others. And I would never be able to do this if I didn't go through that shit. I would have zero credibility. I'd have zero experience. I'd have zero wisdom. I would be one of those therapists who just had fucking book knowledge about what I learned in school and took some tests on and had no real understanding or experience of what it's like to go through and walk through fucking hell. Who had no fucking idea what it's like to sit there and legitimately be suicidal or legitimately be locked up in a goddamn mental hospital. None of you would take me seriously if I didn't go through this. And so I'm actually thankful and grateful for it. And I can say that 100% honestly. And I'm what I'm trying to get across right here is that I am living proof that you could literally, after dealing with this, if you really do it honestly and you really put yourself through it, and it's hard, it's fucking hard, you can get to another side where you could literally be thankful for those experiences. You could be grateful for them because they developed you into such an incredible person that overcame it, that the rest of your life you are rock solid inside. It's not an ego confidence. It is a deep peace that you know you are worthy, and life is... It's not always fun. There are struggles. But it is beautiful. You have meaning and purpose in your life, which make any of the struggles that you might go through, even when it gets brutal, worth it. And you are happy to be alive. And life can be brutal. Right. It can be brutal. It's not always brutal. Not that I'm trying to correct you and be a dick about it, but words are important, honestly, and how we think about these things are important. Even now, I have tough times or tough things that I am going through. Right? I'm still a human being. Life doesn't stop. I now have the tools, though, where things that might have otherwise really had me a complete ball of anxiety, a complete, why am I doing this with my life? What the fuck? What is the point of all this pain and suffering? Why the hell do I why can't I get this shit figured out? Why can't I be like other people? Why is this not working, right? None of that anymore. Now it's, yeah, not everything's perfect, but I am super thankful and grateful. Because right now I feel like I am in total alignment with my purpose. Because I am talking about what I think is the most important fucking thing in most people's lives. It is truly an epidemic. That people are, I don't understand how, as a society, we are not putting a massive... We all sit here and talk a big fucking game about mental health. You know? And yet no one's actually talking about the right things regarding mental health. It's just, oh, be compassionate for them, or, go to therapy if you need help. There's no stigma about it anymore. Fuck that. Fuck that. What we should be teaching people is, yes, you almost certainly went through some hard, traumatic shit that is fucking your life up. And that sucks, and I'm sorry. And you, if you take the responsibility of it, can heal that and move past it and break the cycle, make yourself better, make the entire world better in the process. I'm so sick and tired of all this lip service being paid to mental health on TV commercials, and it's all corporate bullshit. It is bullshit. I am doing fine right now. Thank you for asking. Yeah, no. We can get into all that other stuff. We do have a long way to go, and unfortunately I think we're going backwards, because not that I want to get too deep into this, but really this kind of like forgiveness and spiritual stuff was the domain of religion, and we're not taking this aspect of religion seriously enough. We're too focused on, well, did that stuff factually happen? Like, you know, if there's something in a religious text that, you know, is not, you know, in line with the modern world, or isn't scientifically accurate or something like that, that means it's like, oh, it's not it must be false or something like that. It's like we are missing the forest for the trees, and like we really need to recognize that there are some really deep things that, you know, religions are trying to teach us that we still need to hang on to. And we're writing this stuff off, and society is going downhill. This is where cancel culture is coming from. No one knows how to forgive one another anymore. No one knows how to look at each other as human beings, despite our differences, despite our political beliefs being different, despite any of this other stuff. And we look at stuff people do, and we just go, they're a bad person, as opposed to going, they are a fallible, imperfect human being who was likely traumatized, and some of their trauma seeped out and caused them to do something where they weren't perfect. And it doesn't mean that their entire life is now forfeit to the mob. That is stupid. It is stupid. That, flat out, we need to stop doing that as a society. We need to get back to recognizing our shared humanity. We need to get back to recognizing and having compassion for one another. We need to get back to understanding the power of forgiveness, and get away from this cancel culture. I hate the other political side of the political aisle. They're all evil. All that, we're dehumanizing people. I mean, you're in Poland. Like, I think you're well aware of your country's history with what happens when we start demonizing and dehumanizing other people, right? Yeah, it's awful. And you know, I'm hoping that, I don't think it requires the entire world. If even just some of us started getting our act together, if even some of us started learning the stuff I'm saying and addressing and healing themselves and going forward as, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Yeah, how could it not? And right, exactly, right. That devastation, that trauma, the cycles keep going, right? And it's now arrived at you. Yeah, it really is. That's exactly what I was saying about my dad, and that it seemed to come likely from my grandfather. And, you know, your dad being an alcoholic, it likely is a generational thing. Because so often the traumas that really deeply affect us happen in our childhood, because we, like, A, we're vulnerable, right? We're children. But B, our brains have not developed enough to know how to process it or deal with it, and we learn really shitty, bad lessons. I hope that this has helped you out. I've really I feel very blessed to have had this chat with you for the past 2 hours. And I hope not just you, but anyone else watching got something out of this and sees a path forward. Yeah, we do. These things are... we are so blessed to live in a time where we have something like the internet where you could just be on Twitch and like stroll in and be like, huh, what's going on with this guy? And it develops into a 2-hour conversation and a book recommendation and all that kind of stuff. And I totally appreciate it if you joined the Discord community and kept watching and all that kind of stuff. If you have any questions, you could totally hit me up on Discord. Like if you join the channel, you'll see I'm the administrator. You can DM me. We can keep this conversation going. That's totally cool with me. If you have other questions, any other resources I can provide for you and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Really though, I appreciate your participation. I've been, no worries. Cool. Well, we'll hopefully see you in a few hours. But I really do appreciate it. I've been hoping for more people to start interacting on chat, and so this has been A, really good, and B, made me realize I need to turn off the curse filter on my chatbot thing. People gotta be allowed to say fuck. So here's the deal. I usually do this for about 2 hours. I would typically keep going, but unfortunately on Thursday nights I have something I gotta get to in the next 5-10 minutes or so. So I'm gonna end the stream here for tonight. Normally though, for anyone who's watching, you included, Tuesdays and Thursdays I stream at this time. Wednesday is a little bit earlier in the day. So I'm in America, and so Tuesdays and Thursdays are nights, Wednesdays are kind of in the afternoon, kind of mix it up a little bit, and I may stream here or there at other times just to like stream playing some games or something, but these 3 times a week are for when we're talking about this kind of shit. So there's always the VODs. This stuff gets uploaded to a YouTube channel as well. You can go back and check out some of the other videos if this was interesting to you. I've really dived into not just this topic, but I really dove into trauma in the very first one, and also gave some practical tips in that first one, and then in different other ones I've just I've done all sorts of stuff so far. Some was like, the thing is, if you're gonna heal trauma, it's not an overnight thing. So there was one stream where I just went into like lots of practical things I do every day. And I still do every day, because it's still good even when you're past trauma, but it will help you to get through as you're dealing with it. Just try to make life a little bit better. Stuff like a gratitude practice and all that kind of stuff that you can check out. And if you have any questions, like I said, hit me up in Discord. So it's cool to have you with us. Thank you. So with that said, this was a lot of fun. I hope anyone watching had a really good time. I hope that you'll all join me for the next one, and I will be back Tuesday of next week to talk about this stuff. I'll be back before then, probably streaming video games and stuff like that, but yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Alright, take care everyone. Night, man.